My name is Doug Deptouch. I'm the chair of the Board of Adjustment. It is now 7:03, and we will call our meeting into order. I was wondering if we could just go through quickly, and we'll start with my right and move to my left, with every gentleman announcing their name so we can make certain that we have a quorum.
Blair Weaver.
Charles.
Go ahead.
Charles Roberts.
Doug Deptouch.
Robert Logue.
Don Jones.
Okay, so we do have a quorum of 5, and that is what we need for a full meeting, and that's good. We will now stand and honor our flag with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have two items on our agenda tonight. One concerns the approval of last Board of Adjustment meeting notes, and the other concerns our meeting tonight. I know we've kind of got them in what I would think is reverse order, and if it's all right with the rest of the board, what I would like to do first is just discuss the minutes from the last meeting, give them an approval, yay or nay, and then we can move on to other things, and that way we don't confuse discussions concerning tonight's meeting with what happened last meeting. Does that sound fair enough with the rest of the board?
Yes, sir.
Anybody have a problem with that? All right, I guess with that in mind, I believe everybody does have a copy of the minutes. Does anybody see a need to make any changes to the minutes from our last meeting?
No.
All right, I'll just go right down the line. Blair, you see a need to change, or are we good?
No change.
No change, Blair? No change?
No change.
I see no change. No change. Okay, so we will, I guess I need a,
I move to accept the minutes from the last meeting unchanged.
I second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting notes have been accepted. Thank you very much. Tonight's hearing concerns, and I will read the words so we have the correct diction and we have the correct legal terminology. Is item number 2, and it calls for a public hearing to give all interested persons the right to appear and be heard on a request by Kyle and Vivian Holtz for a variance to Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98 zoning, Section 98-72, Old Town Helotes Special District, Subparagraph I, Landscaping, and Chapter 94, Vegetation, Article 2, Commercial and Residential Subdivision Landscape Requirements, authorizing an exception of the required landscape provisions for the Holtz office building to be located at 14789 Old Bandera Road in Helotes, Texas 78023, more particularly described as BCAD property ID number 1289679. And tonight what we will be considering is a discussion and an approval concerning a request by Kyle and Vivian Holtz for a variance to the Municipal Code of Ordinances, Chapter 98 zoning, Section 98-72, Old Town Helotes Special District, Subparagraph I, Landscaping, in Chapter Vegetation 94, Article 2, Commercial and Residential Subdivision Landscaping Requirements, authorizing an exception on the required landscaping provisions for the Holtz office building located at 14789 Old Bandera Road, Helotes, Texas 78023, more particularly described as BCAD property ID number 1289679, and that is applicant. With that in mind, and with that particular discussion in mind, the first thought that we would like to do is open our discussion to public hearings concerning that particular matter. Is there somebody here tonight who has wished to express their thoughts one way or another concerning that particular matter? Sir, if I might ask you to come forward, please. And if I might ask you to state your name and your address, I would appreciate that so we have that for the record.
My name is Kyle Hulse, and address 14789 Old Bandera Road.
Thank you, Kyle.
Okay?
Okay, how can we help you, or what are your thoughts concerning this
What
matter?
I'm asking for is a variance from the required ordinance saying that I have to put a wall up in front of my property between me and the street. And you should have a number of photographs that I took showing that the city, when they redid Old Town Helotes, put in trees.
Yes,
Then they did angle parking, and then they did a grass area. So, and some bushes, okay? And all the pictures show that.
Okay.
Also, if you'll look at the pictures close, you'll notice that down the right-hand side of my property, which is to the west, there's a line of trees. Across the back of the property, from right to left, there's a line of trees. And on the left-hand side, there is a line of trees from there coming about halfway up the property line to Old Bandera Road. And I can't understand why I would be required to put in a wall up in front. Now, on the landscaping, we're going to xeriscape what we're going to do, okay? Black paper, river rock, a few bushes that do not require water, xeriscaping. And that's what I'm asking for. Okay? You have any questions, I'd be more glad to answer them.
why don't I open this for questions, discussion, and I'll start with Donnie on my left, and we can work our way across. Donnie?
Yeah, I haven't been to that area. I'm trying to figure out which picture this is.
This is at the front of the property, Old Bandera Road. That's that cheetah-ish.
Yeah,
This is his property here.
but is that like a chain link fence, or what is that?
Yes, sir, but that borders the property to the right.
Oh, not his property, okay.
Or it might be his fence, I'm not sure.
Is there a chain link fence at the end of your property, or
Is there a what?
chain link fence?
You took it down. The chain link, there's only chain link fences along the sides of it and at the back.
Okay. I have no questions. I'm good.
But they removed the chain link fence in the front when they redid Old Town Helotes.
Okay,
At one point in time, it was a sign business, and we had it enclosed with chain link fence, with gates.
All right. So what I heard you say was you don't want to have to build a wall. Is that correct?
I do not want to build a wall, no.
Okay, but the variance doesn't talk about a wall at all. It's talking purely about vegetation and landscaping.
The variance does not say that?
Look at
I
the
think
first sentence of the written part.
I think the handwritten text mentions the wall in the first sentence. Mr. Holtz, if I could ask a question of you as well. I'm looking at section 94, the requirements for Old Town Helotes, and it's in the very back of our package, second page from the last. But in the middle of that page, it talks about screening of the parking lot. I think it's the concern tonight. And it says that a minimum planting shall consist of a compact hedge of 5-gallon size plants, planted in a density of 1 plant for every 20 square feet, or a continuous 3-foot high wall. So it's your choice in that context.
Now,
So-
when the city redid the Old Town, they followed that. And if you look out in front there between the street and my property, there is a area where there are bushes and trees, and there's also an electrical, I think it's fiber optics, I don't know what it is, but there's a little bitty thing out there they built out there for fiber optics. And the bushes are already there, in fact, they're doing great. Now, if they want me to put some in my xeriscape, I'm going to, okay? But I don't want to build a $10,000 wall out front, 3 foot high, when it's a retail center, and I would like all the exposure to the front. Now, at some point in time, I will be back down here before you, because we're going to need to put in a pylon out front. And that same area out there in the front, between the two driveways that are entrances, exits.
Now, another background question. The existing oak trees that are on the property that are closer to the building site?
Yes.
Those are marked off and protected now.
Oh, they are.
You're planning on keeping those
Oh,
up?
all of them. There's like, I don't know, 15 of them.
Yeah, I think there's at least 8 large ones that I
Yeah,
could see out there.
And then towards the back of it, of the property, there is a oak tree back there that's older than all of us. It's this big around, and it's a beautiful tree.
All
But we're
right.
keeping all the trees. We're cutting no trees.
So if I restate your request tonight, you're asking us whether you have to put in that 3-foot wall. I would ask that we interpret the language in this section, because it seems to indicate either 5-gallon size plants, similar to what the city's put in. I didn't know the density of the planting that's already there, but it gives us a density, 1 plant per 20 square feet, or a continuous 3-foot high wall. So I hope that clarifies a little bit,
right.
and for the group as well, maybe we can interpret the language here, unless we have to bring the arborist in or something like that.
Also, in that same vein, sir, one of the requirements is because my building burnt down and I lost my grandfather cause.
I recall.
I had to go in and cut the asphalt in order to meet the requirements for your impervious cover.
Right.
And at this point in time, the asphalt has already been cut. If you ever go down there, you can see where it's all cut and where we're going to do the xeriscaping
Yes, sir.
and plants.
So I'm just
All
going
right.
to try
Yeah,
to
thank you.
paraphrase on what you said, is what we're really considering here is an either-or situation, building a wall or supplementing what might be necessary in terms of the arborist requirements for some additional xeriscaping, so as to make the
I
traffic.
don't have a problem with that. I'm
work
going to do it
right.
anyway.
I'm sorry, sir?
I said, I don't have a problem with that. I'm going to be doing it anyway.
You're going to be doing that anyway.
I'm not sure what, he said 1 plant per 20 square feet?
Right.
So in a 10-foot by 2-foot garden area,
Yeah.
you would have to have 1 plant in a 10-foot by 2-foot
Okay,
area.
all right. That's not a problem.
So and in the front of your property, that might be 8 plants or so
Yeah.
that would be required. And I didn't do the math perfect there, we'd have to check it, but I want to make sure that we clarify, because your request for variance is handwritten, and the way I read, the wall to screen the building and parking lot. The city has already landscaped the front, planted trees along with existing oaks and planted bushes and scrubs. Also, if a wall was built, the existing electrical station that's in the front of your property would have to be removed and redone.
I don't know, yeah, if you had a wall there, how are you going to get at it? Unless they tore it down and made an entrance from the street side or something like that.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean?
I guess that I'm just making sure that the way I read that is your full request. You're not asking us to give you complete freedom to do anything you want with the rest of your property. So if today we just considered the request to be particular to building a
that
wall
wall.
or not a wall, that would be sufficient for you?
Okay.
Okay.
And I've already talked to Josh, the landscape guy, and he told me what I needed to do with my trees and what I needed to do for some bushes and stuff. That's it.
Well, we're blessed tonight to have Josh, the landscape guy, sitting right here to my far left. Does that sound like it's something that would meet the spirit of the code in terms of keeping the area green, proper, and appropriate without having to build some kind of wall which may or may not really add to the attractiveness of the area?
So I think the confusion is, it's planting or wall. So as you interpreted it correctly, sir, that he doesn't have to build a wall if he doesn't want to. The issue is whether or not landscaping that the city has planted along Old Bandera Road will suffice as his screening of parking lot. The other requirements such as parking lot shading and perimeter shading, things like that, are pretty much being satisfied by the existing trees that are being left on there. So whether or not he does have to do that screening of parking lot between the sidewalk and his asphalt parking lot is what the question is. In my mind, and when I met with Mr. Holtz on property, I felt that's what we were asking. So I communicated to him, you can either do bushes at the rate specified by code, you can do a 3-foot wall, which others have done, or you can come apply for a variance if you don't want to do either one.
But what I'm hearing is that you're okay with planting.
We're going to plant
So what I'm
some,
also,
but I do not have a landscape plan drawn up at this point in time.
Okay.
But we're going to put some xeriscape plants in where the asphalt has been cut and removed.
okay. So what I'm hearing is that he doesn't really need a variance.
Yes.
You think he does or doesn't?
No, I agree with you, Robert.
Okay.
If you are agreeable to planting 5-gallon size bushes along the front of the property, or adding to the city's planting so that you meet.
I don't want to go out on city property out there because you have underground stuff there. Great Forest Utilities has a line running down through there. There's a fiber optic line goes down through there, and I don't know what else.
Well, so, please, go ahead.
We just have to be careful how we answer it. I mean, the request is here. If our response said, address the wall issue as one piece, and then said that the planting would be resolved between Mr. Holtz and the city, then that closes that out, I think, rather than leaving something dangling. Otherwise, we just have to say we're going to disregard it. And I don't think that's a good way to do it.
So maybe a restatement that we may clarify with Mr. Holtz, but the request for variance was to ask for a variance so that he would not be required to put a wall or bushes?
Or that's how I'm reading this.
Okay.
Because, I mean, as it's put forth, this is for a variance to municipal code ordinance regarding landscaping and vegetation. It doesn't even, I mean, it's really focused on that, so I don't, the first thing is in order to grant a variance, there has to be a non-economic hardship that's, unique to the property. And what I'm really hearing is maybe it's a misinterpretation of the requirements. If you're willing to plant,
Yeah,
then there would be no reason to
so I don't need a variance.
for
So
that,
this-
for this piece.
Okay, well, just so I don't have to plant a wall or build a wall.
Josh?
And just to clarify, the planting has to be in between the road and your parking lot. So if you're doing landscaping along the front of your building, it doesn't satisfy the street parking lot screening.
I don't know if you've been down or not, but you can see where I've cut the asphalt
I've seen it.
all the
Yes,
way
sir.
across up front between the two entrances. That's where the plants would go. Is that what you're talking about?
Correct me if, last time I saw it, it looked like you were leaving some pavement between where you cut and the sidewalk. Was that correct?
No, at the west end of the property, there's a driveway to go in, okay? And then on the east end of the property, there's another driveway you could go in or out. And then between that is 122 square feet, 2 feet, okay? That I have gone in there with a saw and cut the asphalt. And it's not straight, it comes out and then back in and then, but it's all removed and hauled away. And what is there now is exposed base that was underneath of the asphalt. That's from one entrance to the other. That's where we would put some plants.
And this is kind of by the grass median, right here. So you're talking about right in here?
Let me see. Yeah, there's a driveway here, a driveway here, and the asphalt is cut from here to here. See that little green area that comes
Right.
out like that?
Right.
That's all cut out. And it's also all cut out, see this here?
And so you're saying you will xeriscape this area, but,
Well, we're gonna xeriscape over here too. And some over here.
So, I'm having a hard time seeing the problem. That you're under the impression that you're required to put a wall down here?
That's what they wanted. 3 foot high.
Yeah, either wall or
Yeah, so say
or bushes.
yeah, the regulations read, planting as you were intending, or a wall.
Now, all
It's
this right
not
here,
and,
it
it's
doesn't show
or.
it, but there's a sidewalk right here.
Right.
Yeah, it's right here. It's right here.
On this side of the sidewalk, this here is grass and bushes all the way through here.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're already planning to put plants here, which will, you don't, so you really don't.
As
you
long
don't
as
qualify?
those plants meet the city's requirements.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But he doesn't really need a variance.
Doesn't need it, but perhaps to avoid some trick to have him come back, do you think it might be okay for us to just say, as long as he plants shrubs in accordance with the existing city codes, we will waive the requirement for a wall?
Well, I don't think we can do that.
No, why not?
Well, so the challenge is, as we all know, for Board of Adjustments, is there has to be some
Okay.
non-financial hardship due to circumstances unique to the property. For example, we granted the earlier variance on
Right.
the permeable driveway because that was built way before the
Right.
regulations and everything. So I would really think probably the best thing to do is to withdraw the request for the variance, but he would have to do that.
Well, but will that, if we withdraw the request, is the city gonna still come back after him to,
So all that's typically handled as submittal of construction documents. So when he does submit his construction documents, a landscaping plan is one of the requirements, and then I'll review it to ensure it follows code. If it follows code, it'll be approved and it'll move forward. So that's where we're at. If he was worried about us making him do a wall, the wall's just an option to planting. It's
Well,
not.
that kind of ties in with what you said, then, so it's really not necessary for us to grant a variance at
Right.
that point.
So
so just say that, just say a variance is not required? And then
Given the
to me, I just need
current
to close
code
this out.
and the builder's desire to plant according to the city's requirement, there seems to be no need for a variance for a
I
wall.
just don't wanna have something come back and bite him later, because we didn't do the right
Well,
thing.
that was one of the concerns I had, but I hear what Bob is saying too, because we could also find ourselves in a situation where we're regularly, protecting ourselves from something that might bite ourselves later, when it's really not necessary to not even have a meeting on the matter.
yeah, and I guess another way to view this is he already has approval to do the landscaping as presented, per the requirements, right?
No landscaping has been submitted, so nothing's been approved.
Okay. So we might be getting the cart before the horse. That's what I'm thinking. So there has been no landscaping plan submitted.
No, sir, no landscaping plan. We do have a tree preservation protection plan, or he did an affidavit for that, and all that was fine because he didn't remove anything and everything's protected, and no landscaping's been submitted to the city.
Okay.
Which typically that comes when the building plans are submitted also, so.
Okay.
I don't see where there's an issue here. He's already intending to really follow the letter of the regulations.
Right.
So, I would be hesitant to, vote either yea or nay on a variation, because there really is, no reason.
And I think that's what we need to say, is that, the board reviewed this, saw no need for a request for a variation, and close it out.
Yeah, I think,
And Mr. Holtz, as long as you understand that there's still, if we vote to, or if we make the decision that there is no vote required tonight, that the regulation does not require a wall if you plant enough bushes between the sidewalk and your property in the area that you indicated as the front planting area. If you'll plant those bushes, our interpretation without voting is that you don't need to put a wall. As long as you understand that, then we could move ahead by just canceling the request for variation, and you submit a landscaping plan to the city that shows you will plant those bushes along the front.
In accordance with the city's requirements.
And that's a section in the orders that I can get from Ernest?
And it's here in front of all of us, yes.
Yeah. And what is it, one plant, 5-gallon bucket size per
20 square feet.
20 square feet?
Yeah,
Okay.
so 5 feet by 5 feet, one plant.
Yeah.
10 feet by 2 feet, very long
Right.
skinny
Okay.
planter, one
All right.
plant. So it's not very
And
dense.
that area that I would measure to put those plants to conform would be where I've cut that asphalt out?
I believe so. I believe that when you submit your landscaping plan, you can show the locations of the plants, and
Yeah,
the
okay.
city
All right.
would be able to review.
Okay.
But I don't think that we would contemplate this advice, except that we all seem to be reading the same thing. And if we vote upon your request for variation or for a variance, it sets a precedent for other owners along that part of the city. They may come in and all request some kind of change in the law. My opinion is you don't need a variance to plant those bushes and to move ahead.
Right. The other slippery slope I'm worried about is that we don't really write city codes. And I don't think we want to get ourselves into a position of interpreting, basically doing exactly that. So I totally agree with you.
yeah, I'm in agreement.
Doug, you're in charge tonight.
Us?
Thanks. Well, how about we do this, since I get a sense, and why don't we go into a discussion mode? I get a sense that each of us seems to be saying that there's not a need in this particular case, given the intention of the property owner to comply with the city code for vegetation and growth and greenery, for a variance. And as a result, we would just turn it back to the city and say, as far as we're concerned, we see no need for a variance. Does that sound something akin to what we are thinking in general?
Yeah.
Can I get somebody to give me an eye on that or an approval?
Don't we need
I think we need to table
don't
it.
we need
We
an
need to
exit
table it?
the,
Oh, okay, go ahead.
to the public hearing and,
Yeah, kinda, but, we go both ways.
I think the easiest thing to do would be to just withdraw the request.
Withdraw.
Just withdraw the request.
Okay.
That'll solve all of the problems.
All right, then what if, under advice, I say, what if I were to withdraw my request?
For a variance?
Yeah, you say I don't need it.
Under our understanding, we don't think you need it, but you are welcome at any time to withdraw a request for a variance.
And you can also resubmit it in the future if you feel that there is a need.
Well, I don't care. You can either grant the variance or I can withdraw, whichever one suits you. If you don't want anybody coming in later on and asking for what I was asking for, then maybe it'd be
Well,
better
listen,
if
we'll
we
be
just.
happy to meet with you as many times as necessary to make sure we get it right.
I build this project, I'm done.
Okay, all of our objectives here are the same, and that is to make sure the city is as as pleasant for all of its owners and all of its residents and all of its visitors as possible. So, if, you know, if this requires 10 more meetings of the BOA, we stand here ready to come and meet 10 times. But what we're also trying to do is oftentimes, as someone who's in construction myself, I hate to waste time waiting between postings and meetings and such like that. So we're really trying to give you an opportunity to just say, I have a go-ahead based on the understanding of this group. But you are welcome, sir. If you would like to withdraw your request, that is fine. If you would rather have us go into discussion and discuss how we might handle it without granting a variance, that's fine too.
I would caution,
I think what I'd like to have, if, to make it more plain and clear, is that I would like to have a approval for a variance that I do not have to have a wall. And then you take the back end of it and tag onto it that I have to follow the law and ordinances for the city of Helotes' landscaping. Now, doesn't that take care of it?
I don't think we can do that.
You can't do that.
We can't really do that. What we have to do is look at the codes as written and determine if we're gonna grant a variance or not grant a variance. It's kind of a, you know, yes, no. We can't really write a variance that basically is gonna be restating city codes.
But the way it's written right now, it says a wall or landscaping.
Right.
So we can't dice that.
Right.
So basically, what we need to have as understood between you and us is that you can choose not to have a wall as long as you do the landscaping requirement, which
So
means
that it
there's
would
no
be
need
more
for-
clear cut than if I were to withdraw my request. Yeah. Is that what?
so Mr. Holtz, I wanted to add some clarification. If we were to vote on this and the outcome of the vote was not to your satisfaction, you would not be able to come back to us to ask for a re-vote. Is that correct? There's at least a time limit on that. So you could be subject to a long delay if there was any problem in the vote.
And what would you be voting on?
Well, you ask us to vote on a variance to not require a wall. Our interpretation of the regulation now is that you're not required to put a wall if you choose instead to put those planters in.
Okay, all right.
We can't make a recommendation to you directly, but if I was doing my own business right now, I would choose to put the planters in and avoid the vote from us so that you don't get into a legal situation that could delay further work later. By having no vote, you avoid all of those potential problems.
By having a no vote, I do not do away with my rights on down the road.
Agreed.
What you're saying?
Agreed. You can come back and do this over again if you want to in the
Yeah.
future.
If you withdraw your application, then nothing prevents you from coming back to us. Where if the vote goes against your desires, then you don't have an easy way to come back before the board. So you preserve your options, you preserve your options
Well,
much
then-
better
then, yeah,
if you
then I
simply
would like to
withdraw
my
that.
request.
Yeah.
But
because-
also, I would like to have it said to the, I'm not sure who it is, that would not accept our blueprint applications for building without the wall. Now, that doesn't make sense. Somebody in the city was requiring me to submit this on a drawing, a blueprint, that we're gonna put a 3-foot wall up there.
But that would not be within our realm.
But,
of
and this is the
responsibility.
reason why I spent $400 or so to appear before you, so that I wouldn't have to do that.
Yes, sir.
So
city
it
can't
was
do
bad, it was bad advice from the city.
Yeah, the requirement plainly states wall or landscaping. So as long as you can show landscaping, the city can't require you to put a wall up.
Correct.
But if you went ahead with what you're asking, and we came back and said, we deny the variance, then you would not be able to come back again. By withdrawing, you have your full rights, and you're still covered by the city as long as you do the landscape.
Okay, all right. Well, then I would like to have a no vote and withdraw it.
And Mr. Holtz,
Okay, you
we'll,
would just like to withdraw your request for
That's
consideration?
exactly right, yes.
Okay, not a no vote, but a withdrawal of
Okay.
request.
and our discussion tonight will be captured within the notes of the meeting, so our discussion where we stated that our interpretation of the regulation was that you could do one or the other, that will be written down and it'll be kept within the city's records.
Okay, that's good enough for me.
That's a public record, so you have access to it.
I had enough trouble up there as it is.
Don't we all?
We don't mean to make trouble.
No, again, we're
Okay.
here to try to help, but again, we're constrained by certain rules, just like
Okay,
everybody
and
else.
I thank you.
Well, no, we thank you, sir, for coming. So
Due
given
diligence.
the fact that we have had a withdrawal for a request for a variance, I guess what I would do then is ask for someone to give an okay to adjourn the meeting.
I request you adjourn the meeting.
I second it.
Very good.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7:40, and the meeting is adjourned.